There was a person I met in my time in Portland, Oregon that comes to mind, not for anything particularly remarkable about him, but for the exact opposite. While I understand that everyone is inherently unique and that no one person is the same as another, this person exemplified a sort of the sameness that didn't really strike much fascination for me. While friendly, he was just another guy. A guy who talked like everyone else, posted the same generic pictures as everyone else, had the same sort of demeanor as everyone else. Don't get me wrong, I liked this person, but there exist a plethora of people out there just like him. However, Will Shepard, on the other hand, was the opposite. A person vastly unique with a brand of oddness about him that nobody else had quite like he did. He was not the sort of person you could see 20 of in a crowd, and the fact that he has passed away, as wholly individual and enigmatic as he was, is arguably the worst tragedy regarding his death. The impact of his differing nature rippled through my life, and those who loved him are left with the unfairness of someone so deeply themselves lost to the ever-washing tide of time. I first met Will when I was a child. In my earliest youth, I was socially oblivious, struck with a difficulty understanding social cues that I had to claw my way out of as I aged. Despite initially figuring me to be mentally handicapped, Will and I were fast friends. As is the case with so many people, for a brief time, you get a snapshot into their life, spend your time together, even going so far as attaining best friend status in some cases, and then they're gone. People drift. Will was different. I watched people cycle in and out of the ring of me considering them my close friends as life went on, but for a decade, Will remained one of my closest friends, perhaps my closest. He was odd, and I was odd. We were similar in that way. Near the end of his life, I couldn't find it in myself to be close to him when he needed it the most. I, and many others, had the displeasure of watching him bury himself further and further into a pit of addiction. The longer this descent waged, it felt like the less of my best friend there was that remained. He was nearly unrecognizable in his final months, his voice taut and seldom lively, his skin and eyes peaked. I struggled remaining close to him as his vice consumed his life. It wasn't because I didn't care about him. I loved Will so much that I now have his name tattooed on my body for the rest of my life. To me, reflecting on his loyalty, the fact that he was always there for me, that he supported me and grew with me, the notion of moving past his death brings me an irrational guilt feeling. Something about leaving him in the past feels wrong, because for so long, he was such a true friend to me. So, I'll carry on through life with his name on my shoulder and the blue jacket that he wore for almost a decade on display in my home. He once referred to his favorite song as The Endless Enigma by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This was ironic to me, given that Will was an endless enigma himself. Once he died, myself, Will's other closest friend, Evan, and Will's parents were all left wondering more about who Will truly was. He was a man who reserved his deepest feelings for himself only, one who looked at life differently than most, and someone aptly described as being too innocent for the world he lived in. I don't know that there's any making sense of the person underneath Will's multitude of layers, nor the meaning of his life, his descent, or his death, though there are traits of Will's that were on display for those that cared for him. His humor, his heart, his loyalty. He was peculiar, but never once could he ever be mistaken for a bad person. If you knew Will, you knew he was truly something special, a once-in-a-lifetime sort of person. His goodness was immense, and I will forever love him like a brother. I'd like to finish this with a poem I wrote for him. I am here. I am an owl, perched in a nest of thistle. My curiosity is my lighthouse, though the night is abyssal. Its light pervades your senseless drivel. I am there. At last, peace, bliss, love unconfined, exploring what sentience shall never find, the twinkle in the stars, the shine in the sky. I am in between. Call me crazy, call me pariah. They say it's amazing what the sick mind conspires. Why all the hatred? Forgive me for what I inquire. I'm on the outside, looking inside. Tell me, wind, I've sought the truth, and I ask, as I strive for Zen, do you know the answers to what, why, and when?